Come on, Norman.
Hey, Chris, how you doing this morning?
Doing well. About yourself?
Good. Well, maybe a little discouraged.
Yesterday was July 4th.
That's true. And, it should be a time of
Celebration.
joyful patriotism, right?
Right.
Uh, Unfortunately,
For many, it's not.
for many, it's not.
For many, it represents hate
And oppression.
and oppression. Yes, that's correct. I'm glad I'm not one of those people.
That's-
I'd rather be grateful than angry.
Me too.
Even though there's plenty to be angry about. Like,
It's hard not to be angry sometimes.
when you have such systemic dishonesty in our society,
It's
what's wrong with that? I mean, the ends justifies the means. As long as you get to communism, it doesn't matter how you get there.
as long as you get to hold on to power no matter what, right?
That's the important
As
thing.
long as it doesn't matter what lies you have to tell, what deceptions you have to pull, who you have to kill, as long as you get to hang on to power, right?
Well, that's the important thing.
Because that's what the 4th of July is all about.
Power.
Power.
Yes. And oppression.
And oppression.
That's right.
No, well, actually, I think of myself as a very patriotic person. I love the 4th of July. I love celebrating a country that threw off the bonds of tyranny with an armed citizenry standing up and saying,
No
no
more.
more,
That's
no
right.
more. And throwing off, at that time, the world power. And establishing a country founded on the principles of freedom and liberty and
The fact that our freedom and liberty comes from God.
That's right.
Not from government.
And self-governance, right? My ultimate responsibility is to my God. And we founded a country based in the principle that my commitment to my creator comes first. And the federal government that we established is supposed to honor that and respect that and not hinder that in any way. And yet we've come a long way from there, haven't we?
And we sure have. We sure have. So much so that now Christianity is viewed as hate.
That's right.
Forgiveness turns into hate. Imagine that.
But Chris, we have to be so careful about Islamophobia.
Islamophobia. We have to watch out for them?
No, they have to watch out for us, right?
That's not
the-
Islamophobia then. That's Christianophobia. Yeah.
That's right.
As long as somebody fears me, I have power. That's what's important.
Don't you know that flying planes into towers filled with innocent men, women, and children, using planes filled with innocent men, women, and children as missiles to kill other innocent men, women, and children, that's just as bad as the Crusades. That the Crusades, see, I got that wrong.
Yeah, you got it
because
backwards.
I'm a right thinking person, right? That the Crusades were even worse than that. Not only that, Chris, but that the Crusades actually justified that. They only did that because of the Crusades.
Well, at least they had a good reason.
Seems like people don't.
We don't teach history.
We don't teach history.
We now chalk up the Crusades as Christian aggression now in society. We don't discuss the fact that the Muslims then, just as now, were taking over and enslaving people and growing their empire.
That's right.
Against the will of the people who they were conquering.
That's right. Right. So,
but it's the Christian side.
No, the Catholic Church just sent these bloodthirsty monk warriors over there to go and slaughter brown people, right? They just were sent over there to slaughter brown people, no other reason. Those brown people weren't doing anything wrong. They were just over there minding their own business. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
But 4th of July, in a few years, it's going to be the 250th anniversary.
That's going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. And I really hope, and I mean this sincerely, that we have the chance to celebrate it.
I do too.
If Democrats get in the presidency again, I have my doubts. I have my serious doubts if we can actually celebrate that.
Yep.
They'll make a big deal out of it.
Right.
But it won't be sincere.
No. I don't know that we talked about this before, that the country that we live in today is not the country that we grew up in.
No,
It's
certainly not.
already been so, what was the term? Fundamentally changed, right? That was the term Obama used,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
We need to fundamentally change
Change our
this country.
change our history,
Right, right.
as Michelle Obama said.
Well, we kind of mocked him when he said it, but he
He meant it.
he had a
He meant it.
successful two-term presidency carrying out that agenda.
And Biden is still carrying it out now.
Biden is his third term essentially. There's no way. I mean, I don't see how any right thinking person could look at Biden and actually think that he's the one in charge. Biden isn't
That's the whole
running
reason. Well,
anything.
that's the reason they had to hide him. That's the
right.
reason why they never let him talk to the press, because
Right.
the cat would come out of the bag.
Even during the 2020 election. I mean,
Yes,
we're not talking about just now, where it's gotten so bad
Yeah.
that they can't hide it anymore. I mean, they didn't really do all that great of a job hiding it before. You remember the Easter Bunny? The Easter Bunny running out, getting his attention, so he didn't go over to the kids to sniff the kids. You remember that?
I do remember that.
They haven't really been doing all that great of a job of hiding it. What they've done a great job of is telling the general population that people like Jim Hoff are conspiracy theorists, that they just make stuff up for sensationalism. Like Gateway Pundit is a disreputable source.
Well, it's bankrupt now. I wonder what conspiracies brought that about.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's okay. People lose hundreds of thousands of votes every time there's an election. They just disappear. 300,000 votes. I'm sure every state goes through that every single election.
Right. And these videos that you've seen with your own two eyes of poll watchers being sent out of the room.
And then they pull out boxes of ballots.
And then they come back in and pull out boxes of ballots hidden under a curtain, under a table, and keep counting after the observers have been sent away. You're not really seeing what you think you're seeing, right? They can just explain all of that.
Green screen.
Yeah.
It's all done by green screen.
That's right.
None of that occurred at all. It was just all fake green screen conspiracy theory. They wanted the controversy.
Right. Or the shredder trucks that back into the ballot storage area, where they're required by state law, Georgia state law, required to retain those ballots for 7 years after the election for audit purposes, right? Well, it was just an accident that they threw the wrong, hundreds of thousands of ballots into the shredder truck from the 2020 election.
I mean,
what they thought they were throwing into the shredder truck, Chris, were the ones that were outdated from the 7 years prior, and they were supposed to be throwing those out. But they mistakenly, it was just an honest mistake, people.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure. They just mistakenly grabbed the
new ballots.
2020,
the most current recent ballot that needed to be saved, and tossed them into the truck.
I think, there might be some that still had the ability to engage in critical thinking that would look at that and say, that's destroying evidence. They're destroying evidence.
But there's no evidence.
Of course not.
No. Just because you have people willing to sign affidavits that in any other court of law, in any other crime, would be considered evidence, in this case, we'll just ignore them and say there's no evidence.
Yeah, it's, don't you know that if a judge says that these hundreds, maybe thousands, I know hundreds of signed affidavits of wrongdoing during the 2020 election, if a judge looks at that and says there's no case here, well, then that's not actual evidence.
Of course not. If you had actual evidence, you would pursue a criminal activity to the fullest extent of the law.
Or the vote counter that I saw with my own two eyes demonstrating to Georgia congressmen how the arbitration file works when they run those ballots through the ballot counters.
And something's not right.
The-
They have to make a judgment. Go
Right.
ahead, explain.
The system flags it as an issue with that ballot, and it goes into an arbitration file. And there's a room. It's a closed room, by the way. There's a closed room at the back of the counting state area with some computers in it, where there's people sitting back there on those computers that are going through those arbitration files. And they open them up, they check the ballot, make sure everything's okay, and then they go on and put the ballot through. Well, she demonstrated to these Georgia congressmen that cared enough to do an investigation how exactly that worked.
Right.
So she opened up a ballot that they had, for the purpose of this demonstration, purposely done something to, so it went into the arbitration file, so she could open it up and demonstrate to it. And she says, "Oh, well, look here, they double voted. This is what's called double voting, where they voted for two people in the same race, the same position, right?" And so the system has to kick that out, because the system doesn't know.
You can't count either one.
Right. The system doesn't know which one they actually intended to vote for. But, she explained that sometimes in the arbitration, they're able to, based on the other votes on the ballot, they're able to determine which one the person voted for and to correct that.
Like a hanging chad, but on paper.
Kind of like a hanging chad, yeah, kind of. Except this person's looking at a ballot and saying, I think they intended to vote for this person. And changing the ballot to give the vote to the person that they think the person intended to vote for.
So what you're saying is that they can actually program the machine to vote the way that they believe the person intended to vote.
Yes. One of these congressmen, I don't recall his name, I was just as flabbergasted as he was at what I was witnessing myself. She said, okay, well, here's a ballot where there's no candidate selected in this particular race. And so, I think the person really intended to vote for this person, and she voted for that person. And the congressman said, you just cast a vote for that person. And she said, I did, didn't I? Because she was demonstrating to them how the arbitration file works. Now, are you telling me that we can be 100% sure, comforted even, knowing that the people back there on those computers going through the thousands and thousands and thousands of arbitration ballots cast in the 2020 Georgia election, that those people on those computers back there, out of the sight of the count watchers that are out on the main floor watching the counting going on the main floor, but no,
the ballot observers, right?
The ballot observer, right? No, this room is off somewhere else. They're not watching what's going on in that. That's where they need to be watching. That's the room they need to be watching. That those people that were on those computers were 100% trustworthy. We don't have anything to worry about that there were some agenda-driven people back there purposely manipulating ballots. I would like to know. Now I got the printout when I went to the voting machine and I cast my vote, and I voted for Trump and every other Republican on the ballot that I could vote for, because Democrats are evil, and I want to do, not that I'm a Republican. I'm an independent. I've never been registered with a political party in my life. But when I go to vote, I vote Republican because I know that's
they hold your values better.
Right. And that's the most effective way to keep Democrats out of position of power, right? I'm going to vote Republican, even though I'm not a Republican. And there's some things that the Republicans do that I don't particularly like.
No, you mean like spend money more than Democrats when they get power?
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So it's not that I'm a Republican. Now, the Republican Party certainly is much more in alignment with my personal
Belief system.
ideology, my personal belief system, than the Democrats by far, by far. So I vote Republican to keep Democrats. I guess you could say I vote Republican because it's a vote against Democrats.
The lesser of the evils.
Right, because uh, in my own personal examination of what's going on, my own ability to exercise critical thinking skills and make an assessment between two options, the Democrats are just pits of hell evil.
Tell us how you really think, Norm.
I do not like Democrats. They are evil. Now I'm not talking about your average, uninformed voter that has their, they're a union man, or they want to protect. They've been deceived into thinking they're protecting Social Security or Medicare or something like that by vote. I'm not talking about them. Okay, I understand the difference between deceived, ignorant people. And I don't mean ignorant as an insult. I mean ignorant as in uninformed.
Yeah, you don't have the information. That's what ignorant means. You lack the information.
If you ask me to break down this AR-10 and take off the undergun, I could probably take off the undergun. I've seen you do it enough times. But I would have to say, Chris, I'm ignorant about how to do that. Right? It's not an insult. It just means I don't know. So I understand that there's a lot of people that vote Democrat just because they don't know. Now, I can be mad at them.
There are also people vote Democrat because that's the way they grew up.
Right.
Their whole family voted Democrat. Even though the Democrats
family
today,
tradition.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though, it's a belief system of the family.
Right.
Even though they don't understand that the Democrat Party that they're voting for today is a far cry for the Democrat Party as it was voted for.
Right.
Even 30 years ago.
One of the best books I ever read was Zell Miller's National Party No More. Right? Lifelong Democrat. He even says in the book, I've always been a Democrat. I was born in a Democrat family. Essentially, that's what he says. Born a Democrat, going to die a Democrat, right? Now, I'd never vote for Zell Miller because he's a Democrat, right? Well, he's retired now anyway, but I wouldn't have voted. I admired him. I thought he was, at least he was somebody with integrity.
Right.
But I just disagree with his positions.
Right.
Even though in the book he explained how he changed to being pro-life and things like that. So he was I would say Zell Miller was a decent person.
And I think the same thing in Joe Manchin. I think Joe Manchin is a decent person. I think to me he is the last of the integrity Democrats, and now he's changed. He's now an independent. He's dropped the Democrat Party because they left him.
Right. I think it would be safe to say, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I could safely say, I think, that Jimmy Carter was the last actual honest Democrat president.
He was an honest man.
Right.
And a poor leader.
He's still kicking.
Yeah. Well, I actually went to school with his daughter.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Amy and I were his classmates. Really.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
So,
and I actually got the ability to be rude to Jimmy.
Oh, no.
Yep. When she was starting the school that I was attending, at the time it was a boarding school, and I was one of the resident assistants that helped everybody get situated. And we were in the main office where everybody came in as they were coming in to get, set up for school. And he came up right to me and started a conversation with me. And he started with, "Where you're from?" And I said, "Well, I'm from LaGrange," and ran away. I was rather intimidated.
Yeah, right.
And the press was following him around because I forget if it was Begin or Sadat that was just assassinated on the exact same day. So they were following him around.
Right. Probably had some Secret Service that roaming around in there too. Huh?
They were secret.
Oh.
They were actually in the house across the street behind the dorm. And we discovered that when we tried to order pizza to the house across the street from our dorm, because we snuck out to get it, and we got the street number off the door of the house, and the pizza company, when they didn't deliver it, we called and they said, "Oh, that street number does not exist."
Oh.
we figured out where things were going at that point in time.
Right. Yeah. And Jimmy Carter, I think he probably has the most appreciation for Biden because now people say Biden is the worst president in history instead of Jimmy Carter being the worst president. You know, he wasn't a good president. He made terrible Democrat decisions that were bad for the country.
He surrounded himself with a good old boy clan.
Right.
And I was too young to really understand what
Right.
was going on at the time.
Made
But that's
decisions.
what I. But for the people that I respected their opinion afterwards, that was their biggest complaint.
Right.
He surrounded himself with people that he was familiar with, but they themselves didn't have the networking to accomplish the goals that they needed to do as a leadership for the country.
I remember as a kid, you know, I didn't know what the word economy meant then. I was pretty young, but I knew the impact it had on, you know, the gas lines at the gas station and the anxiety at the just like now,
Right.
you know, where people go to the grocery store and, you know, where they used to be able to fill up their basket with $75, now they get, you know, a sack of groceries for $75, you know, if that.
There's a huge difference between what our dollar can buy now versus what it could buy just a few years ago.
Well, that was,
and the thing is, it's intentional.
absolutely.
They intentionally drove the value of the dollar down by giving it away.
Right.
Literally.
That's right.
The more dollars the simple explanation, the more dollars that are out there, the less they're worth.
Well, that's what Obama said, right? We need to knock America down a couple of pegs.
You mean control the decline?
Right. And you know, he is from that segment of,
you mean communist?
Communist.
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got it.
That believes that America should be on a more equal footing with other countries, right? So America, and he said this publicly, that America needed to be brought down a peg or two, right? And so,
because you can't have people responsible to God, you have to have people responsible to government. So you have to destroy the current system so that people understand that it's the government that's really in charge, not God.
So when you say it's intentional, they said they were going to do it.
Yes.
It's. I mean,
there's no secret.
He said fundamentally change. He said the country has to be knocked down a peg or two.
And once again,
and remember his discussions about American exceptionalism.
Yeah, we're as exceptional as France or England.
Right.
Yeah, as long as you believe that your country's exceptional, then your country's exceptional.
Right. And
even though everybody else's rights are denoted by government, only ours comes from God.
Right.
And that's what makes us exceptional, not the fact that our rights come from the government. It's because they come from beyond government.
Do you think that all of the, say, Guatemalans that are
here now, you mean
pouring across the southern border, that all the Guatemalans, if you ask them, is American exceptionalism the same thing as Guatemalan exceptionalism? That they would say, yeah, I was born in Guatemala. It's an exceptional country. I love Guatemala.
That's the reason I walked 2,000 miles to get to the United States.
But see, they just cannot stand the idea that America is actually better. The culture is better. The foundation is better. The principles of government are better because they are founded in biblical morality. The Bible, there was a Houston study of this. I don't know if you've seen
Go
it
ahead,
or not.
continue.
There's a Houston, University of Houston study on this that went through the writings of the founding fathers to see what was the most influential source in their writings. 86% of the direct quotes that they have in their writings that are direct quotations from another source, 86% are Bible quotes.
The Bible. Right.
Then they said, okay, well, what about indirect quotes? And even some of the other direct quotes, they included these, where they quote from Blackstone's Commentary on the Law, which goes back to British common law, that Of course, they were coming out of that when they
Right.
wrote our founding documents, and so obviously that's going to have some influence, right? Even the quotations that they quoted from that were quotations from the Bible. And so that when they got through with the calculation, it's like 96%
of the writings
of
influenced by the Bible.
Of the quote, right. So, I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever. I am 100% completely convicted of the idea that the reason America became the unrivaled superpower of the world, the most prosperous nation in the history of the world, is because of its biblical foundation. I have no doubt of that.
And the thing is that when we started being truly oppressive, didn't really occur until the mid 1800s. That's when we really started taking things from the Native Americans. That's when we really started sending them to the reservations and taking was when we were all already, and we even did it even after the Supreme Court said no, the Cherokee have the right, that they've been doing it, that they got it. No, you got to go. No, we're gonna do it anyway.
Right. And that was Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, that's right. Which of the founding fathers, probably not the most moral of the bunch. So yeah, there's so much evidence for American exceptionalism and the foundations of American exceptionalism and its connection to the Bible, that it makes you wonder why the left is so opposed to it. Why are Democrats so adamant about removing the Bible? I mean, which party is it? This goes back to my, the Democrat platform being from the darkest pits of hell. Which party is it that is so adamant about disassociating the Bible from any public expression at all?
I remember one of the Democratic conventions, and they were pushing to have God removed from some of their documentation. And the vote is just to cheer. All those, for yay, all the, and so, and when you listened to it on tape, you could hear the strongest voice was for removal.
Right.
They didn't, because they know how bad it would look to do so to the rest of the country.
I remember that. I watched that.
But nevertheless, the cheer was for removal of God.
Right. I'm sitting there watching, and they're doing the yay and nay vote.
Yeah.
And
yay.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious. I mean, it was on live television, right? It's very obvious that the yay vote had it to remove what, I forget the exact reference, but it was a reference to God in their platform.
Right.
And the yay vote was very clearly the winning vote to remove that reference to God from their party platform. And yet the person running the vote, like you said, I mean, who
they lied then.
That's right.
They were dishonest to everybody then.
Right. And they said the nays have it. You remember what happened when he said the nays have it?
Yeah, they booed.
They booed. The majority of the Democrat representation
that was present.
What are they called? The
ones
that go to the delegates. Yeah. The majority of the Democrat delegates at the National Democrat Convention booed God. And you want me to vote Democrat? That ain't, that's not happening. Now, if there was a Republican that I couldn't vote for because I'm not gonna, I don't care.
There are Republicans that I won't vote for.
Right. Like a pro murder Republican. I wouldn't vote for that Republican.
Well, who are we murdering?
Human beings, the most innocent and helpless human beings
on
abortion in existence, right? the human beings that it's not possible that they possibly did anything wrong to somebody.
When you look at the platform, I have heard it argued as a death cult.
Absolutely.
Because it's the same. Kill babies, kill the elderly. If you were
Well,
not, if you have a birth defect, they consider. All this occurred too back in the beginning of the German 1930s. It started in the scientific and medical community.
Well, look where they've pushed abortion to, right?
All the way till after birth.
That's right.
Now.
Yeah, started out safe, legal, and rare, right? That was their talking point. Well, nobody's for abortion, right? But we believe it should be safe, legal.
Well, they're for it now.
Definitely for it now.
They're cheer it, and they will declare their pride
absolutely
in having killed
a human
child.
Baby. That's right.
And why not adopt?
That's
why. I don't understand how you would.
Don't you know how inconvenient it is to have to carry a human being in your body for 9 months? That girl just wanted to go out and have frivolous sex, one night stand. She didn't want to carry a baby for 9 months.
Maybe not.
So, again, Democrats are evil. I mean, their platform is evil. Okay. Aside from now, abortion is my that's my issue.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I
changed. I used to be pro-abortion.
Right.
I used to believe in global warming. I used to think there were too many people. I thought that fine, if we reduce the population, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then I learned.
Right. That's right. I wouldn't say I was ever
I was more apathetic.
That would I would say that I would if somebody told me they had an abortion, I was like okay, so
I get it.
To me it was like I didn't really like you said, I didn't really understand the everything involved and what it was.
And I lacked morality.
I mean, well, I did too. Yeah, and so.
I was all for the one night stands at that point in my life too, for that matter.
Yeah,
so,
right. I was trying not to go there, but that's the thing, and that's part of the leftist ideology of free sex and promiscuity and
morality.
The immorality is, I mean, we just came out of Pride Month, right? Which the Bible said pride goes before a fall.
You mean the 4th of July lasted for a whole month? I didn't know that. I thought it was just yesterday. The whole month of 4th of July.
Wouldn't that be great if Pride?
You mean that's not it?
That's not.
Oh,
it. Wouldn't that be great if
Pride
Month actually meant that for the whole month of July you're expressing just pride and being an American,
an exceptional American.
Right,
that's right. God's on our side.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
No.
Unfortunately, that's not what Pride Month is. It's the month of June where grown men go and march down the middle of the street naked, wiggling their junk in kids' faces, and getting together in the city pools and peeing on each other in public as this expression of their sexual liberation and their pride in that kind of lifestyle, right? Who not only is supportive of it but promotes it.
Are you talking
what's her name?
The Democrat Party?
The Democrat Party, right? Yeah, the Democrat Party. Nancy Pelosi. I forgot her name for a minute. Wouldn't that be?
I wish I could forget it longer than that.
Wouldn't that be great if she actually were so insignificant that you could just forget her name and it didn't matter? Unfortunately, she's in positions of power that has an effect on our lives. She attended a pride parade in San Francisco, her home city, where there were naked men jiggling their junk in kids' faces. Actually, naked men going up.
I understand. It's just like it's now you got the drag queen
Right.
children hour,
Right,
drag
right.
queen child hour. I mean that.
Here's these naked men going up and actively engaging with children who their parents, I mean, their parents should lose their parental rights actually for taking their children to an event like that to begin with, right? So, going up and engaging, why
While
are
you're teaching,
why are they?
you're trying to teach quote tolerance,
Right.
but what you're really teaching is immorality.
That's right. And you know, I think that's a legitimate question. Why are they so hyper focused on kids?
Because that furthers their agenda. That's why.
It's
You-
grooming
that's
them
it's
to
been
be-
it's that's the reason why our education system is so destructive. And I'll state it like that: we spend more money per child than any other country and have the poorest results.
We spend more money per child than any other country to destroy our children. It's just total insanity. And the left has done a really good job at infiltrating all of the avenues of influence. All of them.
Yes.
Name a single source of exerting influence over other people that isn't wholly controlled by the left. One. Can you think of one?
My house.
No.
You mean institution.
Your house doesn't have the ability to exert influence on the population, right? That's what
Not
I
a very
mean.
big population. No.
No. I mean
No.
your family, right? And that's as it should be,
Right.
right? No, I'm talking about
I know what you're
societal influence, right? Where
you would say
it's
the church,
influencing
but no, they've gotten there.
That's right. You
They've
can't
gotten
even
there.
say the church
You
anymore.
can't say the church.
Right. You
And it
know,
doesn't matter which church. They've infiltrated almost all of them now.
Almost,
They've
yeah.
watered down the scriptures to where, once again, you've made the morality blurrier
That's right.
than what the Bible says.
you got the Presbyterian Church with their openly LGBT alphabet people clergy.
Well, then they also say that Christ was not divine because he was human.
Yeah.
Isn't that something that a conclusion that was
Right. And that's what you have to do to promote this leftist ideology. You have to do away with deity because you can't have anybody outside of the government, the party, right? Where does that come from? The party. That's communist, right?
Well, the founders hated the two parties.
That's right.
They hated.
That's right.
And that's what we have now.
Because you're supposed to vote for the person, the good person, right?
Right.
You want to vote for the person that reflects your ideology, right? But so many people that I know for a fact, I talk to them, I ask them, you're okay with abortion? Well, no, I'm not okay with abortion. Well, then why do you vote Democrat? Why do you vote Democrat if you're not okay with abortion? You're okay with chopping an 8-year-old little boy's junk off and telling him he's a girl now, making this Frankenstein child now? You're okay
You're
with
destroying
that?
the future.
You're okay with that? Well, no, I'm not okay with it. Well, then why are you voting Democrat, right? It's so maddening, and it's because people don't, they don't realize that that's what they're supporting. That's what I was talking about earlier. Where you got somebody who, one of the best Christian men I've ever known. He was a union organizer, and so, who would you think? He's gone now. He was very elderly when I knew him.
Yeah.
But who would you think a union organizer would vote for? Which party?
Democrat.
Of course, Democrat.
Right.
Right. And and he talked about how he had met these different Democrat presidents and all this stuff. But this is a guy. He was in his 70s when I met him. I think he was in his late 80s when he died. If he were still around today, seeing this Democrat Party as it is today, I don't think he would still vote Democrat. But he, when it came down to the actual issues, right? Like you could ask him about abortion,
right?
And he would just kind of try to explain it away, which bothered me greatly because he was a good man,
yeah,
right? And it just bothered me tremendously that he would just try to explain away the abortion because he thought it was more important to promote or to protect the union agenda. And the Democrats were the ones that would do that, right? Republicans are kind of anti-union, which I think is the more correct view. Is
Trump has done a good job of courting some unions.
Right.
We might see some progress there. Of course, it's not that. I think once again, it's the fact that the Democrats have moved further left to where the people of the unions do not support the left Democrat agenda now. That's the reason why they're considering, support for the Republicans.
Right. But see that's an issue that two reasonable people, rational people, that can make rational arguments. That's an issue that two people could sit down and discuss and debate. Okay, you believe that, and he could make some good arguments because he witnessed things where workers were being taken advantage of, and where
I concur that can happen.
They needed that collective bargaining power to keep the abusive employer in line, kind of. I think that there are legitimate cases for that.
I think unions were a positive force when they argued for working conditions and safety.
Right.
When it came down to
and fair pay, I would say too.
Well, I think now that's beyond fair pay.
Well, sure, right. But I that's what I'm saying, right? You could sit down with a person like that, and you could have a reasoned discussion. Okay, he makes his point, makes some good points. I don't agree with all of his points. I make points. He might say I'm making good points, but he doesn't agree, right? And you can have that disagreement. Okay, fine. We can be friends. I disagree with you on this issue. You disagree with me on this issue. We can shake hands. We can go on. We can be okay, right? But when you're talking about killing babies, how can I possibly be okay? Well, for one, what actual rational argument can you make in favor of it? And how could I be okay with that? Just saying, well, we disagree on that. We'll go along and get along. No, I'm not going to get along with you. You kill babies. So that's where I am.
I understand. And I know that you were very much anti-abortion, and that's one of your number one. I'm Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment protects the rest of the Bill of Rights.
That's right there, pretty close.
Yeah, right there, pretty close. So, the what exists today has been engineered, from what has been in our past, and so much so that they want to further lie about our past. That's what they mean by change history.
Right.
Our history is our history. Just like truth, it is truth. It is facts. Our history is what it is.
That's right.
It's not perfect, but it is what it is.
And the destruction of critical thinking and logic in the education system is part of that purposeful agenda. Right. To make it so that people react to things purely on emotion, without any rational, logical,
Well, I understand what you meant by that
dialogue, right?
Right. Well, the other thing too is that with critical thinking, you might understand that 4 parts per thousand of CO2 is such a minuscule amount of any gas that it's not going to be able to influence anything environmentally other than perhaps destroy life, because it's so little CO2 that this is what our entire food chain is based upon.
Until you said that, we talked about that the other day, and until you said that, it never even occurred to me that the agenda to drive down CO2 in the atmosphere, carbon emissions, right? To drive down CO2 emissions in the atmosphere, that is propaganda. Now, you didn't say it this way.
No, it isn't. Yes, but
this is the way I've been thinking. What is it that they want more than anything else?
Control.
Population control.
Well, control of everything.
That's right. But they actually believe that the human population on Earth should be at most about 1 billion, 500 million.
500 million. So the way you get to 500 million when you have about 8 billion is you have to kill
A lot of people.
7.5 billion people.
That's right. So maybe one way to do that is like mass suffocation.
Or maybe just killing people before they're even born.
Or well, that too.
That helps a
that's
lot.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And it's and it goes way back. Remember the movie? I remember the movies we used to watch in the 70s that were just so terrifying about overpopulation, the dystopian future, like Soylent Green, where they're overpopulated, they've run out of food sources, and so Soylent Green is people. Right? Yeah. So and now the dirty hippies that wrote those movies are the ones in charge now, like Nancy Pelosi. And they believe that they need to get the population down under 1 billion, down to 500 million. And they're actively pushing agendas to kill people. And I didn't make that connection to the global warming agenda in such a direct way anyway, until you pointed out that, this is the amount of the CO2
that's
if you
required
drive that
for life.
right.
Yes.
If you drive that down, then you kill everybody. Which party promotes the destruction of all of
which party is more tolerant of different point of views? Is that what you're saying?
No. Well, I mean, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Even
That's
that,
exactly right. Because there's one party that is not open to other views.
That is
they
right.
call themselves the most tolerant party, and they're the ones that get us kicked off the air.
That's right. And, or send thugs out to harass you and intimidate you. They're the party whose top, most visible congressmen and senators and executive branch cabinet members, they're the party that they're all on camera saying, go out and get in their faces, go out and push back on them, go out and don't let them have any peace anywhere. You remember there was
I do. I remember that. Yes, absolutely, indeed. Yes.
There was a few years there where and it's not going on as much now as it was, but people like Ted Cruz and other conservative Rand Paul almost got killed.
Yes.
Somebody almost killed
he
Rand
was
Paul
attacked in his own yard. Yes. Wasn't he mowing his lawn at the
grass.
time? And the guy.
And I remember that story first.
I feel the tolerance. I feel the love and tolerance from that side. Yeah.
And yet the hateful, close-minded, intolerant party, the Republicans.
You mean the ones that ended slavery?
No,
those guys. Yeah.
They're the ones that, are all for self-governance. Look, as long as your rights end where my nose begins, right? You can't punch me in the nose, but, you can do whatever you want up to that. That's your business, right? That's the Republican Party. You live your life, let me live mine. Don't interfere with me living mine. I won't interfere with you living yours, and we'll be fine. That's why I vote Republican, right? Because that's what I believe. I don't want to now, that's not to say I don't try to persuade people that, my way of life is the superior way of life, and you should come along and go with me because it's a blast. I'm having a great time. Don't you want to come go with me, right? The Christian life, there's no more fulfilling life a person can live. And so I want to share that with as many people as I can. But
you have purpose. Without it, what do you have?
That's right.
There is no purpose.
That's right.
In an atheist point of view, life has no purpose or meaning.
That's right.
Because your life is meaningless. In the end, you will die and the universe will burn out. You'll have nothing but dead photons and there's nothing.
Right. So that's why I would never be in favor of forcing my lifestyle on another person with the force of government. Now, I will use the force of government to prevent them from shoving their perversion in my face and in my kids' face. And, that, because that gets back to, you don't invade my personal space. You don't invade my personal space. I don't invade your personal space, and we're fine. Okay. Well, when you start walking down the street naked so that I can't go out in public with my child without seeing your perverted lifestyle on full display. Okay, well now you're infringing on my rights, and you can't do that. If you want to be naked, if you want to run around, shaking your stuff everywhere, you know, put up a privacy fence around your yard and do that to your heart's content, right? Don't do it out in public where we want to have a civilized society that respects each other, uh, respects even each other's differences of opinions and stuff.
Right. We
right?
don't agree on everything,
Yeah,
obviously.
we don't agree on
That's
everything,
right.
right? So, you're being disrespectful to me by saying that you're going to force me to tolerate your being a pervert in public. I'm not going to tolerate that, right? And you're being I'm not being disrespectful of you. You can go be a pervert at home all you want to, right?
Right.
You can't do that in public where you've got people of different views and yet you're shoving this one view on everyone, right?
Right.
You don't get the right to do that. Just like, if
You shouldn't have the right to do that. But if you want to destroy a society, it doesn't matter what harm you do as long as it's harmful.
That's right. That's right. If I go out in a public setting and I'm handing out, Bibles, for example, somebody comes over, I offer them a Bible. They say, I don't want that book of myths and fables, right? Say, I don't want that. Now if I took that and I hit them across the head with it as hard as I could, and I said, "Take it, you heathen!" Right? Well, then I would get in trouble, rightfully so. Right?
Right.
So they say, "I don't want that." So I said, "Okay, sorry to bother you," and walk on. Right? Go to somebody who does want it.
Right.
Right? This is a swine that doesn't deserve my pearls, so I'm going to walk on and find somebody else. Right? So that's a biblical quote.
Right.
Actually.
Yes. Yes.
Jesus said, "Don't cast your pearls before."
We also said if you have no sword, sell your cloak and buy one.
That's right.
And the modern translation is if you have no AR, sell your Jordans and buy one.
That's right.
Right. Exactly.
Right. I'm going to go out and I'm going to offer people Bibles and people. I'm going to offer to give people biblical materials to point them to the Christian lifestyle that I enjoy so much. But I'm also going to be having something else with me so that if they try to subjugate me in a violent way to their perverted lifestyle, I'm going to be able to stop them, right? Because Jesus said, "Sell your cloak and buy a sword."
Right. Well, it's about defending your home.
That's right.
That's what it's about.
And I live in my body. That's my home. So
yes,
I'm going to
take
defend it.
and in that case, I take my home wherever I go.
That's right. So I'm going to defend it. That's what the Bible says. As long as I'm in this tent, right? This is my tent. Don't mess with my tent.
That's right.
So, man, we just went all over the place, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
So back to the CO2 thing.
Okay.
That spun us off of that. I hadn't made that connection to the global warming, or I guess now you have to say climate change agenda, right? Because first we were just talking about that when we were kids. It was an ice age.
Right. I was
scared
terrified.
to death. Leonard Nimoy scared me to
Nimoy,
death.
yes,
right?
that's exactly. I saw the same show.
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy in search of.
Right.
We're headed toward an ice age.
Right.
Yeah.
Nova. Remember Nova? And it was everywhere. They were talking about this ice age. I think there were even Looney Tune cartoons where they, were doing like ice age, things and stuff.
Probably.
And I was scared to death of another ice age when I was a kid. Right. Well, now our kids are being told that they have to be terrified of global warming. Right. Well, then we got
now you have all these weather bombs. Have you noticed?
Exactly.
Before
right.
there were just rainstorms and large storms. Now there are weather bombs.
Right.
Ooh, scary.
You remember when it changed from global warming to climate change?
Yeah, it's when the math didn't work out on the global warming. That's right.
And we were getting snowstorms in Louisiana and Texas, and people are saying, "Okay, where's all that global warming?" Right.
Well,
And
then
they said, well,
then
it's
global warming now
right.
leads to global climate.
Change, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. Well, it's not actually global warming; it's climate change, where the weather has just gotten so dangerously unpredictable.
You mean like how we predict every single year a record number of large hurricanes and tropical storms, and every year there's a new minimum low set when the and they never go back and revisit the number and say that we were wrong about all the storms that we predicted. No, the only thing that's
Well, they never
remembered
correct
is no,
themselves.
no. The only thing that's remembered is all the storms that were predicted.
Yeah.
That's
So now it's all about climate change, but I hadn't made the connection between that and population control until you said what you said about driving the CO2 down. I knew the connection. Limbaugh used to say that uh, global warming and the climate agenda, the eco-fascist was the new communism, right?
right.
It's the new.
Right.
It's
Well,
the,
it's
the-
also the new religion.
right.
Because there's
It's a system of control.
It's also a system of faith.
Right.
There's just like the Bible. There's if you look at the evidence, there's no actual evidence. They pick the points specifically for an agenda-driven narrative. The point that we start measuring the global warming is after the little ice age. What would you expect the temperature to do after the little ice age ends? Would you expect it to go up? Maybe. Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. After the little ice age, it might go up.
Right. So,
And then they'll start all the other graphs at different points in time past that point. They won't start everything at the same point because then there'd be conflict of information. They don't want that.
so do you think that they actually believe it, or that it's just a tool for control?
Unfortunately, I think there are people that generally believe it.
Yeah.
And that's sad because they don't understand that God is in control.
Mhm.
They think that they are in control.
Right.
And they use that to try to control others. That's how it all rolls together as part of
Like you said, like religion.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's my religion is what controls my life.
That's right.
And
That's
so they want to control my life.
Yes,
So they want to convert
you.
you to their religion.
That's exactly right. They want to forcefully convert
Right.
you to their religion.
Right.
They don't want God to be in charge. They want to put man in charge.
Well,
that won't work.
uh, it's looking more and more hopeful though that we're gonna have an election that will get somebody back in charge that will restore some sanity.
And if that happens, that's God doing it.
Yeah,
And the thing is that I've heard the biblical argument about not voting that God puts in whoever He wants. But this is a democracy. If we don't care enough to put in the better of the two options,
Right.
we deserve
that's
the,
right.
the worst
That's
option.
Absolutely right. I believe that 100%.
If we don't exert our own power that God has given us to further the agenda of good, then evil will triumph.
Right. That's absolutely right. If our American population has gotten to the point that the Democrat agenda, the Democrat Party, what they represent, how the Democrat Party can be so openly obvious about being under just near total demonic sway, and yet our population still vote for them and still put them in power. Well, then yeah, then the population gets what they deserve. I believe that.
And consequences.
Right.
Elections have consequences.
That's right.
Not all consequences are good by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and it was the same way. You go back to the Old Testament where Israel was invaded by the Assyrians and the Babylonians and were taken into captivity for 70 years. And, there was always this righteous remnant. Well, this righteous remnant got taken into captivity too. They had to suffer through the captivity too. So innocent people like us that are saying, hey, wake up, take a look at what's going on. Well, if people don't,
we suffer along with
We
everybody else.
suffer along. I mean, the country's going to be gone for us just as much as it is them.
Right.
So that's I've made that point before, and I know we've probably gotten more religious on this episode than any other before.
Well, we got more religious and more scientific,
right,
both
right.
at the same time.
But
the two are not mutually exclusive.
They
by
are
the
not.
way,
They are
that's
not. Right. That's the right. This false dichotomy between the Bible and science.
I mean, what's kind of that one thing that bothered me years ago was the fact that quote evolution and the Bible didn't meet.
Right.
But then once we define dinosaurs as the descendants of birds, if you look at the creation, that works. That fits. So you can deny God, but then how did God get evolution right before scientists told him to do so?
Where was I going? Oh, the false dichotomy between the Bible and
something
science.
else I want to point out too is that Trump is the only leader we've had in quite some time that is the alternate to the uniparty.
Right.
I mean,
right.
that's what the friction against Trump is that he's not towing the line of the uniparty. That's why he's hated by members of both sides, because the agenda is driven by both sides. One side faster than the other. But the goal of both parties prior to Trump was to take us to the same goal.
Right. But that's what I was saying.
Sorry, go ahead.
But before was that I've made that point pretty frequently lately that you go back through the Bible, right? God destroyed the earth with a flood. There were only 8 righteous people. You think things are bad now. Just think how they were for Noah, right? I mean, when Noah's kids came and told him, well, Dad, everybody else is doing it, they were actually right.
And so, I'm sure Noah told him, well, if everybody jumps off a bridge, you're going to do it too?
Right.
I'm sure that was his argument. Yes.
So, the population of righteous people had gotten down so small that they couldn't preserve the world anymore. And the Bible talks about Christians are supposed to be the salt of the earth. Salt is a preservative. And so I've wondered that, is that when Christ is going to come? Is that when it's all going to come to an end? Is when there's not enough salt? And I preached a lesson. Is this enough salt? Right? Before the captivity, Elijah was all upset that there wasn't enough righteous people, and God said, "There's 7,000 that haven't bowed the knee to Baal." Right? That's what He said. And you think, well, 7,000, that's a good number of people in a nation.
And how many?
Right.
That's
right.
a fraction of if you have 7,500 people, just 7,000 is a nice number. But
right.
if you have 100,000 people, well, then 7,000 is not a whole lot.
Or what's the population now? About 400 million, 450 million?
You mean in the United States or the
States.
world?
Yeah, I'm talking about a nation.
Well, I've already 400 million-ish.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking.
350, 400, 450 now.
It's got to be up around 400 million by now.
The other thing too that they keep talking about overpopulation, but if you look at the birth rate, things are crashing. We are not reproducing at the same rate as we're dying off.
So just think about that you say, okay, well, we got 400 million people in this country, and out of that 400 million people, say 40,000 or even 400,000. 400,000 of that 400 million. What is that?
10%.
Is that 10%? 400,000 is 10% of 400 million? Or is that 1%?
I think so. I'd have to look at the fraction on paper.
Okay, so I think that might actually be right. So about 10%. But you say, okay, 400 million people, say 400,000 are actually good moral people, right?
Well,
does that really say much about that nation?
I want to clarify something. The interesting thing about the dichotomy of righteousness is that when you're righteous, you realize that you're not.
That's right.
That's the whole point.
That's
when you are truly righteous, you realize that you are not righteous at all.
You're right. You're making that effort to.
You realize that you are imperfect
Right.
and are striving for improvement.
You mean that you need someone outside of yourself to turn to?
You mean when you can't, when you have problems and you can't fix it yourself,
Right.
you have to turn to
Right.
others for
Right.
assistance.
Right.
Right.
So, you know, you get down to, I mean, how many people do you get down to that are actually right thinking people, moral people, to where it's not enough to save the country anymore, right? And I think you see that, like I said, in the Old Testament with the flood and with Israel going into captivity, they were
Well,
down to so few righteous people that God sent them into captivity. But there's always a righteous remnant, right? Well, the righteous remnant has to suffer along with the wicked too.
yes,
Right?
yes, that's
So,
correct.
either we turn things, either there's enough of the population remaining that can turn things around, or we're too far gone and we're fixing to go through some real suffering.
Yes, yes. Yep. Unfortunately, that's the case, and we are being ripped apart.
Yeah.
Unity is being destroyed. We are no longer
On
looking
purpose, like
yes,
like you keep
exactly
saying,
right.
it's on
We
purpose.
no longer see ourselves as American. The melting pot has been destroyed. We have intentionally
What happens when you put
encouraged
a bunch of people in the
other
melting pot?
cultures to come in and remain in their own cultural identity,
Exactly.
and the melting pot has been
Turned
melted away.
Right.
That's right.
Turned into a coffee grinder instead of a melting pot. You put a bunch of different beans in the grinder and just try to grind them
Well,
all together.
some of those beans are rocks. They're
Yeah,
not going to
right,
grind.
it's gonna mess up the grinder.
Right. Yeah.
But a melting pot, think about that term. That the United States was a melting
When was the
pot.
last time you heard that?
Long time.
I haven't heard that phrase in at least 2 decades.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've heard that. But what
And
happens?
that's learned in school.
Right.
The melting pot.
The
That
melting
was one of the
pot, right.
things that when you came to America, you wanted to be an American. You wanted the freedom and the opportunity
assimilated, right.
that this country offered you.
When you take a chunk of this and 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 throw it in the melting pot, what happens? It's a melting pot. It all melts together and becomes one thing, right?
Right.
But then multiculturalism came along, postmodernism came along with, the anti meta narrative, all this stuff, and said, no, you have to respect those different cultures. Retain your.
Nobody said to disrespect the cultures. Everything on the left is a straw man argument.
That's
I
right.
hate that.
That's right.
That so.
But
are you for unclean water?
No.
No, but you vote Republican, don't you?
I do.
Are you for dirty air?
I'm not.
No. Are you vote Republican?
I do.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not for dirty water for Mexico either.
No.
I'm not for dirty water for Vietnam either.
I'm also not for bad environmental China batteries.
That's right. But when they come over here, I expect them to respect
Our own laws and culture
and assimilate into the Western culture that they are immigrating into, right? But multiculturalism says that no, you're not a Black American, you're an African American, and so you need your Kwanzaa and you need your tribal garb, and you need to maintain that African culture that you're from, right?
You mean the African culture that bound slaves in Africa before selling them
And
to the Muslims who ran the ports and the slaves before the Europeans came in the boats and took them from the Muslims to the United States?
Right.
And it's all white people that are bad?
Yeah, that one.
That one.
That
Okay,
one.
just making sure. Got it. All right.
It's everything is like this hyphenated American. I guess I should be a English, Irish, German American.
I'm a gun-owning American.
Gun.
That's what I am. That's my hyphen. I'm a Second Amendment American.
I don't know if I could put enough hyphens in my butt ancestry. But everything's like, Korean American, African American, Chinese American, Korean American,
I get it. Yeah. I know.
Well, how about just American? You came here to America to be American, right?
If-
Not Indian
The place that
American.
you left was so good. Why didn't you leave?
Why'd you leave? That's right. I mean, I'm all for reparations in the form of tickets back to where you want to go.
Did you see the 4th of July celebration in Washington, D.C. when there was no American flag present?
No,
But you can believe it.
I can believe it.
Yeah.
Because of who's controlling D.C. right now.
Right.
Um,
But I'm sure Trump can get a fair trial there.
right. Wouldn't you be in favor of that if you're not happy here, if you're not if you don't fit in with Judeo-Christian Western culture, we will give you a plane ticket, first class even, to anywhere you want to go, one way. Anywhere you want to go with a signed agreement, you don't come back.
Well, I think
I would
this.
do that.
Well, I think also this is when the left has it right. You lie to them. You tell them that they're going to this place of their choosing, and you send them to China.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not in favor of lying to people, but you know, hey, if it works. Uh, but you know, why all the protesting against a country that, if not for the values of this country, you would be beheaded for protesting?
Right.
Right? Go try that in an Islamic. That's one. You know.
Yeah.
I
When you
think
burn the American flag, the only thing that you voice is your hypocrisy.
That's
because
right.
you're burning the symbol of the freedom to burn it.
That's right.
Try that. Go to Saudi Arabia and burn
Exactly.
their flag.
Yeah.
And see how that goes.
It's not
You
gonna
are
go well.
burning. You are destroying the symbol of the country, of the freedom that allows you to burn it.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And that's if Trump said that when he's reelected, he would require all federally funded universities to send their freshman class for a 1 month cultural enlightenment trip to, you know, Afghanistan or Iraq or Gaza, or
You mean where they can actually have a different point of view than America?
where they can get a taste of what they're saying here makes us so bad for wanting to keep out of here.
We are so bad, Norm, that our poor are obese.
I know.
Now tell me other countries where the poor would like
That
to be
kills me.
obese.
The 500-pound lady at the grocery store paying for 2 carts full of lobsters and 2-liter soda bottles with food stamps just blows my mind. You can always tell who's shopping with food stamps because they got the T-bone steaks, the lobsters, all the stuff that I can't afford to
No,
buy.
I understand. So, well, that's the reason why we eat wild game.
That's right.
We stay away from. It's cleaner. We know its history. Know where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's.
It hadn't been pumped with all kinds of hormones
and
vaccines
antibiotics and RMNA
right.
vaccines,
GMOs.
yeah, all those things. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, all right,
Norm. Looks like we got goals.
all right.
Right.
I think we got enough for 2 episodes out of that.
It's our longest one, and we still got battery left too.
Yeah, that battery had 2 hours on it when I put it in.
Okay. I wonder how much this got left.
I
Because we've
don't
been
know.
talking for a while. I have been tracking.
We
time.
have been. All right.
All right.
So I'll see you for the next one.
All right, Norm. Take care.
All right.